Hello and welcome to the Force Friday show, the weekly show from Movie Burner Entertainment, where we discuss all things Star Wars, be it canon, movie related, anything relating into Star Wars. What have we got first this week?
Well, it's quite a busy week, John. We've been complaining over the last couple of weeks that we've been struggling for some Star Wars news, and just like the public transport here in Scotland, you wait for one and three come along at once. Yes. First up is George Lucas's ideas for his own Star Wars sequel trilogy aren't as wild as they first seem. Apparently the former owner of Lucasfilm said this: the next three Star Wars films we're going to get into the microbiotic world, but there's this world of creatures that operate differently than we do. I call them the Wills, and the Wills are the ones who actually control the universe. They feed off the Force. George Lucas went on to say, if I'd held on to the company, I could have done it, and then it would have been done. Of course, a lot of fans would have hated it, just like they did with The Phantom Menace and everything, but at least the whole story from beginning to end would have been told.
Yes, I think it's a shame that Georgie boy didn't get to see his vision complete from start to finish. You can say what you want about George Lucas at the end of the day, even as a director, but as a world builder, as someone making a vision in his mind appear on the screen, you cannot criticise the man for that. He had a story to tell in the prequel trilogy, regardless of what you've got to say about it, and he told it. It was interesting, the overall arc of the story, even if the dialogue at times was a bit cheesy. The worlds he visited, the concepts and the politics that you get into, I thoroughly enjoyed. And I do think I would have enjoyed this sequel trilogy that he had in mind. There was obviously talk just after Disney bought out Lucasfilm that Lucas did have treatments in place for the episodes 7 through to 9, and that they threw them out. And we can understand now why they threw them out. I'll get into it as the topic develops, Stephen, after I've let you give your opinion, but you can see why they threw these out. These would have been, if you think The Last Jedi was divisive, then these would have been 10 times as divisive, because you're getting into microbiotic creatures and how they are affecting the universe, and I think that would have been ridiculously divisive. I think it would have been a completely different take on the Star Wars galaxy, and that's certainly something that Lucas consistently did with Star Wars. He shook up things, he visited new worlds and new characters. He didn't really repeat, although a lot of people have argued they did in the prequel trilogy and obviously Return of the Jedi, but as he says, history is like poetry, it often does repeat itself, but he always went off in a new direction and tried to create something new.
You know, John, as we know, the Wills have been mentioned many a times throughout the last 40 years, you know, relating to Star Wars, and they managed to pay homage to that in Rogue One as well with the Keeper of the Wills. And you know, at first when I read this story, I thought it was bonkers, John. I just thought it was so far away from the saga story. We talked just before we came on air, and I did say that, you know, after reading it and understanding where Lucas was going with this, it may have worked, you know, as a separate trilogy, unrelated to the actual Skywalker saga. And it's just baffling how this would work. After the events of Return of the Jedi, it would just be too far a stretch to accept that this is episode 7, you know. Yeah. You're never going to get that happy medium with Star Wars fans, unfortunately. You know, when you play things too close and too safe, they criticise you for not having any original ideas, and then when you go too far the other way and try and make the most original Star Wars film you possibly can, people can't relate to it, they distance themselves from it and can't accept it, as we saw over the previous 2 episodes. This would have been an absolute disaster, I think, to go there. That's not to say that it wouldn't have been an interesting story for George Lucas to carry on, but as I said, I would have preferred this if he was going down that road back in the day as a separate trilogy. I would have hated this to be in episode 7, episode 8 and episode 9, get into this sort of microbiotic universe. And in fact, when I first read this article, it reminded me of the closing scenes to Men in Black, when we realised that our own universe was a marble and it was these big giant aliens playing with the marbles. That's what it reminded me of, you know. And it's interesting. I don't know why it's coming out now. I don't know. It sounds like something maybe Lucasfilm have deliberately paid George to say to make the actual episodes, the episode 7 and episode 8 that we have got now, sound a lot better. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, instead of it being giant aliens playing with marbles, Stephen, and it being our universe, it was small, microscopic aliens that are playing with things. I think I agree with most of what you said there, Stephen. I don't think it would have worked in terms of the Skywalker saga. Certainly if you went off and done a separate trilogy, maybe explaining the mythology and shaking it up and adding a more scientific element to the whole thing, then it would have maybe have worked as a separate entity and a self-contained story that's not really impacting on the saga. Then you could have maybe went off later on at a later point and explained much of the things. I think the reasons behind why he was looking to do it are admirable, though. I think it would have added more legitimacy to the whole midichlorian thing that he put into the prequel trilogy. Obviously, a lot of people slagged that off, and rightly so, because it was a ridiculous inclusion. But we weren't to know, in hindsight, what he had planned for maybe a potential sequel trilogy 10, 12, 15 years down the road. If he'd told us that he was looking to do a thing with the Walsh and how it would all interconnect, I think he says further on in the same article that the midichlorians act like a conduit between the Walsh and the obviously Force users. So he was also trying to do maybe what Rian Johnson's done in The Last Jedi, but on a completely wider and bigger scale, and that it was going to shake up the wider mythology. Obviously Rian Johnson did this with the Force. He done it in a different way though, where the Force will rise to meet evil. In this case, Rey's powers are a little greater than they should be because she's rising to meet the threat of Kylo Ren and Snoke. He did it a different way. In George's mind, he would have been explaining all of this by saying that there was microscopic bacteria that was influencing the Force. It was eating off the Force. It was going to influence things going on in the galaxy. My only thing I would have found been interesting with this, if it was to have took place in the Skywalker saga, would have been how it would have affected Luke. An older Luke who's also been ingrained in the Jedi way of believing it's all spiritual and that destiny shapes the universe and the galaxy. You need to remember this was a chap that had been hammered into him that he was a chosen one. He'd bring balance to the Force. His dad was a chosen one before that. It would bring balance to the Force. Destiny, it's all spiritual. So if he was to have then discovered that these tiny things were actually shaping everything and that it wasn't destiny at all, it was all scientific, there was a reason behind things, and it could maybe influence these to do good or bad one way or the other. But that would have been an interesting concept for me to see how that would have impacted things. And yeah, I've not got much more to add to it. Why, in terms of why it's been fired out at this point in time with The Last Jedi, obviously very divisive and so flopping at the box office, I think you may be right, Stephen. It may be Disney. I don't think they've paid George to come out with this. I don't think he gives a crap about Disney now. Some of his comments he's come out and says over the last few years, when he made some disparaging comments and basically says that they'll get their money's worth out of the franchise and fleece people. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but yeah, he's not a chap that's in love with Disney and a poodle by any means. I think he's just come out and says this because he purely wants to let people know what his ideas were. But Disney will certainly not be against it by any means, because no fans will be looking at this and saying, what the hell, maybe we're better with the sequel trilogy in its current format and not George's mental microbiotic form.
Listen, John, I'm delighted that these films aren't getting made. I've got to be honest with you. I think it's just a step too far, as far as the Star Wars universe goes. Perhaps I just can't picture the characters in these films, and little ants or something. I don't know. I just don't think everything has to be explained, and I think it's just a step too far and try to regurgitate and justify the inclusion of midichlorians. When the original trilogy came out, I think everybody was just accepting of the Force was this spiritual guide, throughout the universe, and it was accepted that that's what it was. It was a spiritual plane that certain people, particularly Jedi, could reach and use. And I'm just glad that they didn't go down that road with, Honey, I Shrunk the Saga, because it just would have been absolutely dreadful. I think I would have stopped watching Star Wars, I've got to be honest with you. It's a step too far, John, if I've got to be honest with you. It might have worked, as individual stories or away from the saga, and perhaps somewhere down the line it might crop up again, 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. It might have worked, but who knows.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I've always enjoyed about Star Wars, Stephen, that it is more spiritual based, and that you've got that sense of mystery behind everything. You've got the likes of Yoda that are the old wise masters that are preaching about these spiritual things and how they impact, they bind and connect everything in the galaxy. And if you cheapen that with scientific stuff, then it's kind of getting more into the lines of Star Trek. I don't hate Star Trek by any means. I grew up with that, watching The Next Generation. I loved the original series, but it's a completely different thing to Star Wars. It's more scientific. Leave that to Star Trek. I can understand the reasons behind why he was wanting to broach it though, because it would have justified the use of midichlorians and how they would have interconnected, but it's not going to be a part of the sequel trilogy or any further saga stories going forward, because Disney bought it out, they ditched these treatments, and we're moving on.
Yeah, we'll move on, John, just to our next topic now. And this is a little story on Billy D. Williams possibly returning to the role of Lando Calrissian in Episode 9. Billy D. Williams is rumoured to reprise Lando Calrissian in the upcoming Star Wars Episode 9. The character, who was introduced in the original trilogy, has been conspicuously absent from the sequels thus far. Lando wasn't even mentioned by name in either The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, which in retrospect makes some sense. There really wasn't a place for him in those films, but still begged the question of where he was during that time. Lando is certainly a significant enough figure in Star Wars lore that his fate could be addressed in the movies. For those wishing for Williams to return in the Skywalker saga, hope was found when it was revealed that the 81-year-old actor is busy getting into shape via an intense training regimen. Of course, Williams could be looking after his personal health, but with Episode 9 beginning production in July, some saw this development as a sign he was coming back to a galaxy far, far away. As it turns out, this could be precisely the case. Now, John, I had a bit of a debate with a lot of Star Wars fans on Facebook group we're in regards to Billy D returning. Absolutely love the guy, love the character, thought he was amazing in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Returning to Episode 9 to me is a little bit late in the day.
Yeah.
There is no, in my opinion, there is no connection, there's no reason for Lando to crop up now. His interactions mostly were with Han and Leia and Chewbacca to an extent. I suppose there is a link there, but it's a little bit of a stretch, is it not?
It is. It's a very tenuous link indeed, Stephen. I think if you were to bring the character of Lando in, it should have been done in The Last Jedi, and you know exactly where it should have been done. The character of DJ, played by, of course, Benicio del Toro, that was the time to bring Lando in. You could have swapped him out. This is a guy that has links to the underworld, the criminal underworld. He's got links to Lawbot and the likes of that, who's an android type character. You could have been the codebreaker. You could have had connections with people that know codes for the First Order. You could have got them into the ship, and that would have been you. You would have had a small little cameo for Lando instead of the whole betrayal thing. You could have just disappeared off into the sunset, back into his whole criminal underworld existence, and everything could have been happily ever after for the character of Lando. But instead, we're now getting them forced into potentially Episode 9. As you said, there's not really any need for him to come in. I can't really understand how they would work it. Why would they be coming back? Unless you're getting to finally see Han's funeral, which they totally kept out of The Last Jedi. I don't know why they did that. Maybe you should ask Ryan Johnson that, I don't know. But that would have been the time to bring him in as well. I don't really know why they would bring him in now. The only thing I could possibly think of off the top of my head is at the end of The Last Jedi, Leia and the Resistance obviously send out a SOS call basically to all the allies throughout the galaxy. None answer. Maybe Lando has been hiding out or doing something in the unknown regions of the galaxy, and this is him answering the call. Obviously it's too late because they're away, now formed as a rebellion, a new rebellion, but maybe he comes into it that way. He's heard the distress call and he comes and meets up with the fledgling rebellion, and that's maybe how they can bring him in. I can't really see any other way though. I don't see the need for it. I love Billy D. Williams. I would have loved to have seen him have a bit of a role in the sequel trilogy, but I think it's too late now. And with Han not there, that's the connection for me going. It was always about him and Han and Chewie and that kind of a camaraderie. That was your connection to the saga trilogy, the saga story with Lando. I feel it's just them trying to force him in now on the back of Solo, try to catch people who did enjoy that film and get them back in and enjoy an older take of the character, but it's totally unnecessary for me.
Yeah, maybe they can bring Wattle back as well. You know, it's because it's just, you know, to me, I think it's pretty desperate. I've got to be honest with you, John. I think it's pretty desperate to try to shoehorn a classic character in there now. 81-year-old. It's unbelievable. He is looking a bit better than he was a couple of years ago when I saw him appearing at one of the Star Wars celebrations. This might be to do with his fitness regime, I don't know. I'd like to think, you know, on a personal level that he's doing it for his own personal health rather than for a movie, because I wouldn't like anything to happen to Billy D. He's just one of those iconic actors, one of those iconic characters that he plays, which will be forever remembered in the Star Wars canon. And I think it's just a step too far. I don't really see the need for it, John. The only problem, I did like your theory in regards to the distress signal, but from what John Boyega's saying, this is taking place a lot. I think a lot of time has passed since episode 8, so I think this is the only way they're going to try and get round, the absence of Leia, is that time has passed, and unfortunately, General Leia has now passed on. This makes it even more less credible bringing Lando back, because it's just so much time has passed, and with no mention of him in episode 7 or 8, it just makes it even more. I think they had the opportunity to bring him in, maybe not in episode 7, because they were introducing the new characters along with reintroducing the classic characters, and perhaps that was a bit too much for episode 7, but they certainly could have done it for episode 8, as you said, with the whole DJ character. Benicio del Toro is one of my favourite actors from the past 20 years, and I couldn't stand him in The Last Jedi. I just could not stand that character. It was irritating, pointless, and it's one of the bad bits about that movie. I'm not saying it was Benicio del Toro's fault, but it was just an unnecessary character. They would have got away with that more and probably made the Canto Bight scenes a bit more watchable if Billy Dee was in them. But unfortunately it's not. But this story, I'm not going to go as far as to say it depresses me, but it's put me in a downer, because I think it looks like they're grasping at straws to me, because they know that they've burnt their bridges with Harrison Ford. Unfortunately, the sad passing of Carrie Fisher, which it's nobody's fault, that's life and that's death. But they burnt their bridges with Mark Hamill as well, because by all accounts he's had enough of it, and it just looks like they're going for sloppy settings here with Billy Dee Williams. And I don't mean that in a any sort of bad way towards Billy Dee Williams. I absolutely love the guy, but I just think if they're going to bring him back, they would have done it by now.
Yeah, I think it's really is them just clutching at straws, Stephen, to bring in a legacy character, as I like to call them, just because they have no more legacy characters. You've not got Leia, who was meant to be at the forefront of the whole film. As you say, Mark Hamill's pretty much, I think he's done with Star Wars, and if he does pop up, it's going to be a minor cameo role, which is a travesty in itself, but we'll not get into that again. I completely agree about the DJ character. There was just no point to that character. Even now I'm scratching my head. When he says to Finn, maybe you're right, you think maybe he's going to have a turn back to the good side and maybe have an impact later on in the film, but it doesn't, he just disappears. Completely pointless character. That druggy stutter had me really annoyed. That was the time to bring in Lando. It really was. Stop bringing in characters like Rose and bring in guys like that if you're going to do it. Don't wait to the last moment to bring them in. The other thing that I'm going to end it on, this topic on, is that surely he can't, even if he's doing this intense training regime 3 times a week, the guy could barely walk a year and a half ago, so has he really came on that much that he's now able to walk? He was in the realms of a Peter Mayhew in that he was borderline crippled, he was struggling to walk. So if you do bring him in, he's going to have a very, very minor role, and it would just be completely pointless, and it would be an insult to the character of Lando, who had a massive part to play in the final 2 films of the original trilogy. He was a major character. He was a general in the rebellion. And just hearing you saying that previously, that they'd failed to even mention him in the first 2 films of the sequel trilogy, just hearing that annoys me, because it's ridiculous. Totally erasing him out of the saga, it's just ridiculous. But I've got nothing against Billy Dee Williams, and if he does get a chance to come back in and star, then fair play to him, but I think it's clutching at straws, really.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly isolated the character in episodes 7 and 8. He's total in isolation. I think there was a bit of a reprise with Donald Glover portrayal of him in Solo, and we'll just have to wait and see, John. As I said, this is just speculation at the moment. I think the story's been picked up on Billy Dee Williams, obviously getting into some training regime, but it could be for health reasons, who knows. As far as his walking capabilities goes, I mean, he could do a Klieg Lars, and have that sort of hover walking chair thing. I don't know. I think that might be distasteful. But just moving on now to the final topic in this week's Force Friday show, and this is another rumour, John, and it's from Screen Rant again, and this is Lucasfilm has 9 Star Wars movies in development. Tom Kane, a prominent voice actor on the Clone Wars animated series, says Lucasfilm is currently developing 9 new Star Wars films, as difficult as to believe the studio is already approaching the end of their current slate of releases in the Disney era. After the release of Solo last month, episode 9 is the only one remaining. J.J. Abrams begins production on the sequel trilogy finale in July, well ahead of its December 2019 release date. After that, the future of Star Wars is a mystery, or maybe not, I don't know, but if we to believe this actor on the Clone Wars animated series, Tom Kane, it looks like there's going to be 9 films in production. We've talked about this before we come on, John. I think we actually counted maybe about 8 of them.
Yeah. I think they actually says in another article that it was a minimum of 9 that they had in development. But as you says, we kind of done a little bit of mathematics before we came on. I'm not the best at math, so maybe I'm wrong here, Stephen. But also Rian Johnson has got his own trilogy, so that's 3 films right away. And then you've also got the David Binoff and D.B. Wise series of films, which you would assume is at minimum of 3. So that's another 3. So that's 6. And then you've got Obi-Wan and Boba Fett brings you up to 8. And then there's obviously talks about a potential Lando standalone film after the performance of Donald Glover in Solo, A Star Wars Story. That was one of the big positives from that film. So that could be a 9 right there. But then again, maybe it isn't. Maybe Lando isn't getting a standalone. Maybe D.B. Wise and David Binoff are only doing 2 films. Is Rian Johnson even getting a trilogy? I wouldn't give him it. We said that last week. I'd give him 1 film, base the box office success off of that, and then give him another 2 if it's deemed acceptable. But I ain't the president of Lucasfilm. It's all up in the air, Stephen. We'll have a little chat about what we think the potential 9th film could be if it isn't Lando. But it's intriguing to see that they're pushing on. They have to push on, because as it says in that article from Screen Rant, they're coming to the end of their current slate of releases. Episode 9 is the last one. That's next year it's coming out, so they need to get the ball moving and get some films announced rapid.
Yeah, I'm unsure of this chap Tom Kane, but he's certainly a man that's possibly in the loop anyway, working at Lucasfilm anyway on these animated series, John. In regards to future films, we've talked about this before, and I think that the Jon Favreau television live action series is going to have a big part to play on Dave Filoni's future as a director. I think he is going to be given some episodes of Jon Favreau's series to direct, just to dip his toes in the water. And I think somewhere down the line, Dave Filoni is going to get his own Star Wars film eventually.
Yeah, and I would be delighted to see him get his own Star Wars film, and that's just going to lead into what I was about to say, Stephen. I'd love to see an Ahsoka Tano standalone film. Obviously, it was a character that was absolutely despised by the vast majority of the fan base when she made that first appearance on the Clone Wars animated series. But then as it grew and she expanded as a character and her relationship with Anakin developed, most people started to get on board with the character. They really enjoyed it. And she's an interesting character. What they've done with her now, she's went off and became a sort of a grey Jedi thing. She became disillusioned with the Force and the Jedi. But I love Dave Filoni. I would completely trust him to handle the Ahsoka Tano character. There's certainly scope there for them to do a film about her, and Dave Filoni's the man I would want in to do it. The other possibility would be a Snoke standalone film. This was a guy that came from the Unknown Regions part of the galaxy. That's supposedly a place we're going to be delving into further as these films develop. There's been rumours about Rian Johnson exploring that. There's been rumours about D.B. Wise and David Binoff exploring it. So I think we are going to go further into there. Maybe broach the Mandalorian topic, and you could broach the topic of the First Order and how it became what it is in the sequel trilogy, how Snoke became embroiled with it all, just about him in general, his species, the planet where he's from, because he's an interesting character that just never was expanded on in the sequel trilogy. He met an untimely end and most people were disappointed. Is he Plagueis? You could expand it all in a film. The possibilities are endless. Here, Stephen, you could do umpteen different films based on totally new concepts. You don't need to go back and follow characters we've seen in the original trilogy. I'm glad to see that one of the things that's come out of this announcement, if you'd like a rumour, is that they say Yoda is definitely not getting a standalone film. That would have been ridiculous. I'm dead set against that. Every time the subject comes up in that group we were talking about earlier, we're a part of on Facebook, they always bring up, what would you like to see as a standalone? They vote on it. They always bring up Yoda. Yoda, as we mentioned earlier again, Stephen, we keep coming back here, you need some mystery in Star Wars. You can't reveal everything. We don't even know Yoda's species name. We know he's got some weird interconnection with the E.T. alien. He's connected to the Star Wars galaxy. You need that mystery. Yoda is a mysterious character. We do not need to know anything more about his past. We don't need the soul treatment for Yoda. So I'm delighted that he's not getting a standalone film. Broach out and expand the galaxy. We've been slaughtering Kathleen Kennedy, well I have anyway, about not being ambitious enough. Stop looking back and go forward.
Yeah, it's just how far you can go though, John, because I don't think it would be wise to set any Star Wars films in the future. You're kind of, you're restricting your writers that way, especially in the novels. Just going back to Snoke, as far as I'm led to believe, I don't think he's really explained in any of the novels in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens either. So where he's came from is still a mystery. One chap that does pop into my head if they're going to do some kind of backstory to him is obviously Ed Harris. If you look at Ed Harris, he is a ringer for Snoke. You know, and he certainly could play that role. You'd have to obviously knock Andy Serkis in the head right enough, which would be a travesty because he brought so much life to that character. As far as standalone films go, we're at a point now where we're just counting down the clock to this saga's finished, because as much as the Skywalker saga intrigued me up to a point, I think it is time to let the past die, as Kylo Ren said, you know, and move on, because I think this is what's restricting them at the moment. And if you're thinking of standalone films, you know, the obvious ones that people talk about is Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Vader, Luke Skywalker, and we're still staying within that time period that's frustrating a lot of people, you know, especially people that know the sort of larger arc and are used to the expanded universe, which is now the Legends stories that are still kicking about in bookshops. There's so much potential there and material to work off, and although it'd be great to see some kind of Old Republic style trilogy or standalone movie coming out, I can't see it, because at the end of the day, Disney, Lucasfilm are a business, and they will not see that as a money-making exercise. They'll play it safe all the way. The only way I can see this really working for them is to treat it like a family tree and work from the sort of inside out and start building your stories and your worlds out the way from the saga and move out. Still contained with the Solo standalone film and Rogue One, that's within the saga timeline. It's time to start going maybe before The Phantom Menace and maybe just after Episode 9 and just expand from there. I think that's the only way they're going to be able to do this, because that's the way I think their business model is. They're not going to go that far with the general public that are not really avid followers of the Star Wars stories, and perhaps the Jon Favreau television series might open a lot of people's minds up to accepting, you know, that we can visit other worlds and other time periods. I think the Beinhoff and Wise films, they might open up things as well, but it's all baby steps, John, and I think that's just the way it's going to be. We're just going to have to accept it. I enjoyed Solo. I thought it was a great adventure film. It's not as bad as a lot of people expect it to be, if they're judging it on the box office numbers. And also Rogue One is one of the best Star Wars films made, better than some of the saga films. So it's just really finding that balance to please the sort of avid Star Wars fans and the general public, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems, Stephen, they have at the moment. They're not taking enough risks, they're not being adventurous enough, and it's hindering the relationship with the Star Wars fans. They want to see new worlds, new concepts, new characters, because they're traipsing on the original characters, the legacy characters and the original stories, and they're maybe spoiling some of the older fans' enjoyments of those films because they're doing things they don't agree with. If it went off and were more adventurous and done new stories, new concepts, new worlds, then they would keep those fans on board, and then they'd maybe gain new fans as well from the general public because they're doing more and exciting and different things. Completely agree about you saying they'll baby step out and expand out. I touched upon that a couple of weeks ago, I think, where people continually compare the Marvel Cinematic Universe to Star Wars, and it's two completely different things. We were just discussing it yesterday, Stephen, about DC as well and their animated universe. Just the massive amount of stories they have at their hands, all different characters, all different threads, all interconnecting, that they can build films out of. Star Wars hasn't got that luxury. It's all come out of 3 original stories, and they haven't expanded out. They're doing everything in reverse, so you can't do what they did with the MCU or DC here. And yeah, that's why they do. They have to baby step out, but at the same time they do have to take risks. Another thing I'd love to see them doing sometime down the road is do a Thrawn standalone and reintroduce Mara Jade to the canon. But I could talk for days on this, Stephen, and we would get no further forward because I'm not the president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy is. And until she goes and they get someone like Dave Filoni in, who has got a bit of balls about him and will go and do something new. He's done it with their animated series. He knows how to handle characters like Thrawn, Darth Vader. He knows how to bring in powerful characters with a bit of brains and cerebral thinking about them, but not overuse them. He's clever the way he handles things. He gets Star Wars. Until they get someone like that in, we're not going to see it going out and taking risks. We're just not with Kathleen Kennedy.
But are they fierce, John?
I don't know, Stephen, are they?
I totally get what you're saying here, John, and I think involving the story group a little bit more will help and aid these future films, because they've got some terrific writers, very talented. Claudia Gray, Chuck Wendig, Timothy Zahn as well, who's wrote some terrific novels as well. Some of them are now legends. So I think that's the key. I think involving the story group a little bit more. We've talked about this previously. I just think they're getting totally ignored. Just involve them a little bit more, and I think that's the way to go, because at some point you're going to have to rely on some material. As you said, DC are doing it, or they should be doing it, with the massive amount of material they can work from. Star Wars is different, I understand that, but even to cherry pick the best of the expanded universe wouldn't be the worst thing they could do. But they've got talented writers in there, and I think they should use them.
Yes. One final thing I'll say is that they have got unlimited scope in what they can do with the potential 9th film that they're developing, Stephen. I don't know what plans they've got, but the possibilities are absolutely endless. They can pick any different character they want to focus on in a totally different world, but they'll probably pick something that we already know. They'll maybe do a Jabba the Hutt standalone film, or maybe even a Bib Fortuna Daiwana Wanga series. I don't know. That's what Lucasfilm do these days. But I digress. That is us reached the end of this week's episode of the Force Friday Show. We'd just like to thank you for listening to us babbling off about a lot of crap once again, and we'll be back next week.
Remember guys, if you're enjoying the content we're putting out, then subscribe to our channel, like, comment and share our videos. You can also find us on iTunes and Google Play at the Movie Burner Podcast, and give us a little follow on Facebook and Twitter at Movie Burners. If you fancy a spot of casual reading, then all our latest written reviews and occasional articles can be found at movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.